to the phone number you see on your screen. Also, throughout the presentation, please send us your thoughts and questions by submitting them to the Q&A moderator, which can be selected from the drop-down menu in the Q&A panel. If you would, please include your full name and organization when submitting your question. We will happily respond to all questions via email after the conclusion of our time together. Following this event, we will also be sending you a copy of the PowerPoint slides, a link to a recording of this webinar, and additional resources that will be mentioned throughout our presentation. And now, it's my great honor to introduce today's special guest speaker. With 39 years in public education, Dr. Patricia Wright brings a wealth of experience and expertise to today's discussion. After spending 10 years teaching mathematics at the secondary and middle school levels, she went on to spend 29 years with the Virginia Department of Education and served in a variety of roles, including state mathematics specialist, director of secondary instruction, assistant superintendent for instruction, chief deputy superintendent, and state superintendent. In her time with the department, she worked closely with governors of different political parties, the Virginia General Assembly, the Virginia Board of Education, local school systems, and professional organizations to develop and implement Virginia's standards-based accountability program and statewide system of support and technology innovations for public schools. Dr. Wright retired from the Virginia Department of Education in May of 2014 and now serves as an independent consultant advising on educational policies and government relations. We are thrilled to have Frank Path join us for this webinar. Before we turn things over to Dr. Wright, if you give me just a moment to run through our agenda for the afternoon. Here on your screen, you'll see the list of the topics to be discussed. First, we'll explore a little of the history of how folks have approximated pi through the ages, and we'll take a closer look at how the Quantile framework for mathematics can help in crafting classroom activities to celebrate pi. Then, we'll also share some important news and updates from the Quantile framework. And finally, by far the most important topic of Hungry Summits everywhere, at the end of the presentation, I'll be back to announce the winner of our annual pi giveaway. And yes, you must be present to win. So with that grand tease to whet your appetite, it is now my distinct pleasure to turn the proceedings over to Dr. Patricia Wright. Pat?
Good afternoon, everyone. And Matt, thanks for that kind introduction. I always feel so old after introductions of such kind. I'm looking forward to participating in today's webinar. As you know, I'm a huge advocate of the Quantile framework. Having spent 39 years working in publication, and over half of that time I've spent working directly in mathematics, it's easy to see why I'm drawn to Quantile. And with these resources that have been available back when I was teaching, I think probably my former students might wish the same thing. As a lifelong mathematics educator, I see all kinds of possibilities for using the Quantile framework and resources. Today, my role is not to give you a speech and not to make a formal presentation, but to remind you of some interesting facts about the history of pi. I'll give you a couple of ideas for celebrating Pi Day with students. So let's begin. We've known about the number pi for almost 4,000 years. Pi is a mathematical constant that's most widely recognized in the world. Pi is actually a number, although an irrational number, meaning that it cannot be expressed exactly as a common fraction, and when expressed as a decimal, its digits never repeat. We also see pi referred to as 3.14. Hence, March 14th is always celebrated as Pi Day. But 3.14 is an estimate of pi. Now, since March 14th falls on Saturday this year, and most of you won't be in school, we thought an early preparatory session might be more appropriate than a Saturday webinar. So, when do we use pi? Pi is used in geometry, especially in the study of circles. So pi crosses all strands, the measurement, algebra, and as you'll see today, even probability and statistics. That's not possible, as we've so far, to pin down a finite value for pi. Thus, we can do is approximate its value. The most recent approximation was made to 12.1 trillion digits in 2013. It's calculated by a computer, of course. The record for the most digits calculated by hand is 527 digits, and held by William Shanks, who finished in 1873. Now on your slide, you'll see actually 1,000 digits as an approximation of pi. Quite impressive. Now today, we're going to look at a few ways that pi has been approximated through the ages. Kind of a history lesson, if you will. I'll also talk about some pi day activities you might use to students of different ages, including younger students. In this webinar, we're going to suggest some related grade level standards that these activities are intended to support. But keep in mind, that teachers can always take an activity and differentiate it just to the student's mathematical skill level or quantile level. Let's start with the ancient Babylonians. They approximated pi by calculating the area of a circle by taking 3 times the square of its radius. They used the value of pi equal to 3. Now, one Babylonian tablet, see on the slide before you, indicates the value of 3.125, which, of course, is a closer approximation. So, to celebrate Pi Day, students could measure and find pi themselves. Here's a classroom activity, I think fairly popular with teachers of mid-grade level, but this activity is really geared towards 3rd graders. In a large area of the room, or the gym, or perhaps even outside, we see if it's not snowing, have one student stand in the middle of the room and hold one end of a string that's about 15 feet or so in length. And this student becomes the center of a circle you're going to create. Now, extend the string 3 yards and then walk the string around to form an imaginary circle. As you walk the string around, stop and ask students to come stand just inside the imaginary circumference. In doing this, you're creating points on your circle. Next, use a tape measure to find the diameter of the circle by measuring through the student at the center to the opposite side, and then measure the outside circumference as well. You can have students do this using a flexible tape measure, or alternatively, wrap a string around the circumference, a very large string around the circumference, and measure the string. You can then use these measurements, circumference and diameter, to show that if you multiply the measured diameter by 3, you'll have an estimate for its circumference. Now, this particular activity, you want to thank the Office of Curriculum Instruction in the School District of Philadelphia for contributing. Now, for 3rd graders, this activity corresponds to a standard found in most states' measurement screening. In the case of Common Core, it would be the first half of standard 3MD4. Now, Lisa is going to share how we can use the Quantile framework to find other activities that support the standard for other state-specific standards. Lisa?
Thanks, Dr. Wright. This is Lisa here from MetaMetrics. I know a lot of you are planning to celebrate Pi Day with your students, so today I'm going to show you some tools to help you actually every day of the year. These tools make the Quantile framework much more than just a scale. The Quantile framework is a scale that describes a student's mathematical achievement and the difficulty of specific mathematical skills and concepts. The Quantile scale is used to measure 2 very important aspects of learning, both the learner and the lesson. So students can have a Quantile measure of math readiness to learn, and similarly, math lessons, software activities, and so on can have a Quantile measure of difficulty too. And both are actually used to help teachers teach more effectively. Now, in the Pi Day measurement activity that Dr. Wright walked you through, those students were following the standard 3MD4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the website, quantile.com, to show you how we can find actually other measurement activities for the other days of the year. So I'm going to switch over here and go to quantile.com. This is the home page. And there are a variety of tools available on quantile.com under the Use the Quantile Framework tab. So go to quantile.com, use the Quantile Framework, and then we're going to go under the Math Skills Database. When I click the Math Skills Database, I'm able to actually search for skills, concepts, and resources by the standard. So I'm going to click on Common Core. We were just talking about Grade 3, Standard 3 MD4. And when I click on that and click Search, I see that there are actually two different skills and concepts in the framework associated with that standard. There's one on measuring length in inches, centimeters using appropriate tools, and one on actually making line plots. I'm going to click on this first one here. And when I click on that particular skill, I'm able to see there's information about it, the quantile measures there, the description. But what's interesting to teachers is I can go in and pinpoint resources that are available for that particular skill at any time. These are free resources available from different parts of the internet or some activities that have been provided to MetaMetrics. You can see there's some really fine activities here from illustrative mathematics, some gourmet learning activities. And one activity of particular interest I wanted to point out to you was under the print resources, there's activities that have to do with literature connections. So when I click the Keep Your Distance activity, I can see this is actually a math literature guide. And so it's referring to the book Keep Your Distance. That's a Math Matters book. And it talks to you about reading the book with students and then gives you some challenges and connections and some questioning strategies and so on and so forth for you to be able to use this with the students in your classroom and have a nice connection with math and literature. So you can see how easy it is to find math resources that are available for particular skills and concepts. So I'm now going to turn it back over to Dr. Wright. She's going to tell us a little bit more about approximating pi. Dr. Wright?
Thanks, Lisa. Before we see pi approximated to 3 decimal places, 3.125 by measurement from the Babylonians. The first actual calculation of pi was done by Archimedes around 250 BC. Interesting discussion that you might have with the students, by the way, is the difference between a measured approximation and a calculated approximation. Archimedes is one of the greatest mathematicians of the ancient world. He approximated the area of a circle by using the Pythagorean theorem to find the areas of 2 regular polygons. One polygon is described within the circle, and the other polygon is described outside the circle. Because the actual area of the circle lies between the areas of its inscribed and circumscribed polygon, the areas of the polygon give upper and lower bounds for the area of the circle. Now, depending on the mathematical maturity of students, they could simulate what Archimedes discovered. There are some very nice graphic software that can help students do this, by the way. And second, students should recognize that increasing the size of the polygon creates areas for upper and lower bounds that are closer together. So might also introduce this activity by discussing the circumference of the circle compared to the perimeters of inscribed and circumscribed polygons. The perimeters approximate the circumference. Now, Archimedes knew that he had not found the value of pi using these approaches, but only an approximation within those limits. In this way, Archimedes says that pi is between 3 1/7 and 3 10/71. An interesting part of the activity for students who graduate 4 or 5 would be to first discuss Archimedes and how we approximated pi. Then we go through some discussion of mixed numbers and decimal equivalents. We could write the 2 mixed numbers that represent the upper and lower bounds of pi, 3 1/7 and 3 10/71. Ask students to work and pair to decide which value is the upper bound and which is the lower bound. They can take their statements like the value of pi is greater than blank and less than blank. For 5th graders, you could also show the decimal equivalents for pi. They should recognize that the values differ only in the thousandth place, as you can see on your screen. As students work in pairs, you should see some numerical reasoning going on. They may find the right equivalent fractions, then they tell you about the numerator, about the denominator. You could also remind them of a standard they could recall from grade 3. Here you see on the screen. You could give them diagrams, perhaps to write 3 and 1/7 as its equivalent 3 and 10/70. Then, because the numerators of the two fractions are now 10, they can compare the denominators. At this point, you need to ask them some probing questions. Which are smaller pieces? The whole divided into 7 pieces or 7 1 pieces? If you have the same number of pieces, will the fraction with the larger denominator be smaller or larger? You should be able to use number sense to see that 3 and 10/71 is less than 3 and 10/70 to complete the statement. Now, some students may make drawings to visualize what you're asking them to compare. For the students who are not write equivalent fractions in this activity, we could differentiate instruction and rely on standards from a lower grade that students solve the problem in a different way. This differentiation is sometimes difficult to manage in the classroom, but you can always rely on the Quantile framework as you help. The link is on the show us how to do this on Quantile.com.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. So the Quantile framework actually spans the developmental continuum from kindergarten math all the way up through the content that's typically taught in Algebra 2 or Geometry, Trigonometry. So it ranges from what we call an EM 400Q, which means 400 quantiles less than 0, to above 1600Q. And the Quantile framework is built on associated skills and concepts in what we call a knowledge cluster. So I'm going to give you an example of a knowledge cluster now. I'm going to go back to Quantile.com, and I'm going to click on Use the Quantile framework again and Math Skills Database. But this time, instead of clicking the standard, I'm actually going to go into the keyword search. And in this case, I can click on I can actually enter right equivalent fractions, okay? When I click on search, we'll see a variety of skills and concepts associated with that, but I'm going to choose the right equivalent fractions with smaller or larger denominators skill, and I'm going to click on that, and I see everything again about this skill. It's measure, it's Quantile measure. I could click on the resources. It looks like there are a variety of resources here available for this particular skill. But really what I wanted to focus on here was the knowledge cluster. So when I click this link here that says the 12 related skills and concepts, you'll see that I have skills associated with right equivalent fractions with smaller or larger denominators. So I have skills that are called prerequisite skills here, and these are skills that students have to learn beforehand. They have a lower quantile measure, okay? I also see skills with higher quantile measures called impending skills, and these are skills that actually students progress on to. So the knowledge cluster is made up of the skill we're talking about, the prerequisite skills, and the skills that come after our pending skills. Now, for differentiating instruction for students, you would actually, say you had a student who was struggling with being able to write equivalent fractions, you could click on one of the prerequisite skills, and you could get some resources associated with that. So if I click this one here, using models to write equivalent fractions, we would all say that would be a prerequisite skill. If I click on that, I now am able to see the knowledge cluster associated with that skill and concept. And so I can keep drilling down as long as I need to. Here I see that the skill we were talking about of comparing fractions with the same numerator denominator, that's a supporting skill under this skill and concept. And I can click that one and see its related resources, and I can keep drilling down until I get to level that the student is able to understand. So in this way, we make it really easy to differentiate instruction, either by providing skills and concepts that are prerequisite, or for impending skills and concepts, if students are needing some enrichment activities, we can go that direction as well. So, we are going to now see one last pi approximation from Dr. Wright. So I'm going to turn it back over to you. Here we go.
All right. Our final one at approximating pi, I think it's quite interesting. One you may or may not be familiar with. This one has its basis in probability and statistics, whereas our first activities were grounded in measurement and geometry. One statistical curiosity about the population of pi is called the von Needle experiment. Now, this one was an 18th century French mathematician who devised a way to calculate pi based on probability. The experiment was a needle in a plane. In this case, the floor marked with parallel lines in the wood. He repeatedly dropped the needle and counted the number of times the needle hit the line. Now, it turns out that if you know the length of the needle and the distance between the parallel lines, you can calculate an estimate for pi using the reciprocal of the experimental probability that the needle will hit the line. The first needle experiment was tried out in 1901 by Italian mathematician Mario Lazzaroni. He tossed the needle 3,408 times. Well, obviously, he had a lot of time in hand. And calculated pi to have a value of 355 over 113, which is a better approximation. Now, one needle experiment is a good way for, say, grade 7 students to celebrate Pi Day. You could have the students do the actual experiment a few other times using a wooden matchstick with the end removed, of course, or a toothpick. Now choose a line notebook paper. And make sure that the distance between the lines is greater than the length of your matchstick. Ask students why this is important. Ask students to measure the matchstick using a centimeter ruler and measure the distance between the lines and the paper. They can then drop the matchstick and count the number of times the matchstick hits the line. If the matchstick doesn't land on the paper, this is a boarded trial, so students shouldn't count it as a valid trial and proceed to drop it again. Students can do this calculation and compare the values of pi they find. Lisa, I'm going to turn this back over to you now.
Thanks, Dr. Wright. So this is actually a nice fit with the standard 7SB6, approximate the probability of chance event by collecting data on the chance process, and really just, running experiments with experimental probability. So we're going to take a look at this example on Quantile.com at this particular skill and see what we can find. So we're going to use the Quantile framework again, go to the Math Skills database. And now we're going to go to Common Core, grade 7, and look under 7SP6. Click Search, and you can see that I have QSC 249 here, determine the probability from experimental results, compare theoretical and experimental results. And I'm going to click on that skill, and I could look at the knowledge cluster, or I could go right to the resources, and you can see there's a lot of resources available for this. And what I wanted to do was actually show you that when you are on Quantile.com, you can choose to actually run a Von Needle experiment. It's an interactive activity here. So when I click on that, you can see that I can keep a running total of the number of trials I'm going to run. And this is really good for students to get a feel for experimental probability. So I'm going to click on Run Trials, and I'm going to keep clicking this. And you should watch, and you'll see that that value of pi is changing. It's actually calculating this on the fly, right? So it's getting kind of closer and closer. There we go. We're now in the 3s, so we're getting closer. I actually ran this about 1,000 times. It got closer to pi. It was a little closer, but I think you need to run it a couple thousand times. But as you can see, it's pretty fast. Students would really enjoy this, I think, getting to actually see the needle experiment run through. So I just wanted to make sure that you could see that you can actually use the simulation, and it's right there for you, available for free. So let's go back to the home page of Quantile.com. And I just want to show you that the tools we were looking at were under the Math Skills database. There are several other tools I want to point out. We're not going to look at them, but I would like you to go take a look for yourself and experiment with those. One's called the Quantile Teacher Assistant. This gives teachers a snapshot of their classrooms and the Quantile measures their students have so they can tell whether activities are appropriate for their class. Find Your Textbook. This is a resource available which lists textbooks and their Quantile measures that are associated with the lessons of the textbook. Math at Home. That is a resource that parents can use to access activities for their children that are related to particular math skills. And, of course, Summer Math Challenge, which you're going to learn about in just a second, okay? So let's leave the Quantile.com website and go back to our slides. And what I'd like to do now is just switch gears and give you a couple updates, some happenings in the world of Quantiles that are just have been recent. The first big news for us is we have a new research brief on about the Quantile framework, and that's actually listed on Quantile.com. It describes how MetaMetrics has quantified the difficulty of mathematics lessons drawn from math textbooks commonly used in the U.S., and really talks about the math complexity of those textbook lessons within and across grades. So what we did was we took lessons from, I think it was over thousands of textbooks and thousands of lessons, and in K through 12 in the U.S. and analyzed them. The textbooks were aligned with Common Core standards, and some were not aligned with Common Core standards, and they were measured using the Quantile framework. Each lesson was given a Quantile measure to represent its math difficulty. And we wanted to be able to compare the student's growth in Quantile measures against the math demand of the textbook. We really wanted to see if the student was on track for being ready for college and career. Now, the next step, what we're going to do with this is to continue this trajectory by comparing the demand of post-secondary math lessons to those in college math texts and to see where does the student need to be in order to be prepared to be ready for a career or to go on to college after high school. So the second big piece of news we have, and by the way, you're going to actually get a copy of that math research brief in a follow-up email that you're going to be getting from MetaMetrics. So the second big piece of news we have, actually bigger, right, is that MetaMetrics has partnered with the team at Think Through Math. We're going to be integrating the Quantile framework with Think Through Math supplemental curriculum, and students are going to receive Quantile measures from the assessment component of Think Through Math, beginning actually in the fall, 2015-16 school year. And students' Quantile measures are going to provide guidance on, hey, what math topics are students ready to learn? And each lesson in the Think Through Math curriculum is going to receive a Quantile measure as well. And so student measures and Quantile measures of the curriculum are going to match up, and students are going to be assigned content at their appropriate level to improve their math skills. So now we're going to turn it over to hear from Dave Lyons, who's the Director of Product Management here at MetaMetrics, and Dave's going to tell us what's new for the summer. Dave.
Thank you, Lisa. Those were some really awesome Pi Day activities. I might have to try that needle experiment at home if I can find a lot of free time. And thanks again to all of you for joining us to celebrate Pi Day. This is an annual tradition at MetaMetrics, and we really enjoy it. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the Summer Math Challenge. So we introduced the Summer Math Challenge in 2013 as a math-focused counterpart to the very popular Chief Summer Reading Challenge. And the Summer Math Challenge was very popular that first summer, so we did it again last year, and we had even more participants. So now we've decided to offer the Summer Math Challenge every summer. And the main goal of the Summer Math Challenge, of course, is to help prevent students' loss of math skills over the summer. The research indicates that summer math loss is actually a more significant problem than summer reading loss. So there's actually more backsliding that takes place with math. And unlike summer reading loss, summer math is a problem regardless of household income level. So it's sort of an equal opportunity problem. The good news is that MetaMetrics has created the Summer Math Challenge specifically to help address this problem. And the Summer Math Challenge is an email-based program, which means that parents receive daily emails with information about grade-appropriate math skills and concepts, as well as links to fun math activities and resources. And it's important to note that the Summer Math Challenge focuses on reinforcing skills that the students would have acquired during the previous school year. We've sort of intentionally avoided introducing new math skills and concepts that would not yet have been taught by a teacher in a classroom. So in 2013 and 2014, the Summer Math Challenge was for grades 2 through 5, and for 2015 we will be adding grade 6, so we're going to have 5 grades total this summer. A couple of things I'd like to highlight about the Summer Math Challenge are our Real-World Wednesdays and Fluency Fridays. So the Real-World Wednesdays focus specifically on math skills and concepts that relate to everyday activities to help students see how the math skills that they are learning are actually useful and can be used outside the classroom. And then Fluency Fridays give students an opportunity to practice their math skills using our Fluency Friday game. Now, the Fluency Friday game is an online sort of flashcard type game that helps students increase their fluency with basic math skills like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And the Fluency Friday game also helps us keep track of whether students have completed all of the Summer Math Challenge activities for each week, which is important because only those students who have completed all of the activities can download a Summer Math Challenge award certificate at the end of the summer. And here's an interesting fact about the Fluency Friday game. All of the math problems that appear in the game are automatically generated using MetaMetrics Math Item Generation Tool. And the MIG, as we affectionately call it, takes item parameters provided by the Quantile math team and then automatically generates math problems based on those parameters. So, for example, the math team could say they need 3-digit subtraction problems with no regrouping and a vertical layout. And the math item generator could create hundreds or thousands of math problems that match those requirements in seconds, which is very cool. We'd like to use the math item generator for other applications, and the Fluency Friday game has given us a really good opportunity to test out its abilities. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of our participation data from 2014. So we had almost 11,000 active accounts, which means that almost 11,000 parents, teachers, or other educators signed up for the Summer Math Challenge. And that was about a 46% increase from the number that we had in 2013. And we had almost 13,000 kids enrolled, which was up about 40% from 2013. So we were pretty pleased with both of those numbers. We had 12 states that were official Summer Math Challenge partners in 2014. But it's important to note that we had participation from students and parents in all 50 states. And for that, we need to give credit to our fantastic marketing and state outreach teams for doing a really great job of getting the word out, even in states where we didn't have any formal partnership. The Fluency Friday game was played over 6,700 times, and to facilitate that, our math item generator spit out over 135,000 problems. So we're quite happy with that tool. Okay, here's a map of the U.S. showing participation by state for the 2014 Summer Math Challenge. And the different shades of blue indicate the varying levels of participation from state to state. So the darker the blue, the more participants we had in that state. And the fact that North Carolina turned out to be sort of a dark, deep blue is completely incidental. And again, as I mentioned before, I'm happy to say that we have participation from parents and students in all 50 states. And the top 3 states, in case you're curious, were North Carolina, Virginia, and Kentucky. Okay, so that concludes the Summer Math Challenge portion of our Pi Day webinar. If you'd like to learn more about the Summer Math Challenge and see some of our sample daily emails or download a free Summer Math Challenge flyer, you can go to quantile.com/summer-math. And now I'm going to turn things back over to our MC, whose initials actually happen to be MC, Mr. Matt Copeland.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, we've reached that time, that moment your stomachs have all been waiting for. It's our annual Pi giveaway. We've assigned a number to each person in attendance today, and here in just a moment we will randomly select one of those numbers to determine our winner. That lucky individual will receive a gift certificate to have a pie of his or her choosing delivered from Porch Pie. And so, without further ado, drum roll please, Lindsay. And the winner is Jennifer Barron. Congratulations, Jennifer Barron. You're the winner of a Porch Pie gift certificate, and you're the envy of lemonade communities everywhere. So, to wrap up things for this afternoon, special thanks again to Dr. Pat Wright for sharing her expertise with us today, and many thanks as well to both Lisa Bickel and Dave Lyons for their ongoing work. In the coming day, we will be sending each of you a follow-up email that will contain a recording of this webinar, a copy of our PowerPoint presentation, and all of the resources that have been mentioned today. And if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to contact us. We look forward to talking with each of you again very, very soon. From all of us here at MetaMetrics, have a wonderful rest of the day.
Right. That's funny.
So, a couple of notes. This is awesome. You guys did an awesome job, and I really like the content. Can I say